Well, welcome everybody to the latest video in the Innovators Series that we've been doing here at Momentus. And today I'm super excited to have with me the two founders of MCO Performance, notably Oona O'Reilly and Marie-Claire McGreevy. So ladies, welcome to the show. Really, really great to have you, and excited to hear a bit more about what you guys do. So why don't you give the audience a bit of a background on what MCO Performance does?
Thank you so much, Steve. We would be delighted to. So Una and I are the co-founders of MCO Performance, and MCO Performance is a strategy execution consultancy. And what we do is work with sales teams, leadership teams, teams with commercial targets to help them use more of their processing power for the magic rather than the mundane by putting in scalable, repeatable systems and processes to help their team unlock the right motivation mindset to achieve commercial success and realize their full potential. And I'll give you a bit of background to, I suppose, the story of MCO Performance. No massive ingenuity behind our name, other than my name's Marie-Claire, Una's name is Oona, so you get MCO. But if you we can share a copy of our logo, which has an infinity symbol in it, and that is our nod to enduring results. So when we partner with clients, it's a really long-term strategic approach, and we all want to work towards the same headline goals. And a lot of the work that we do and have done previously, because we've been working together for quite some time now, it's really heavily influenced by Simon Sinek, and he's one of Una's lifelong heroes.
You know, I love him. Not sure if you've ever seen or heard him speak, but he's $250,000. So cheap, you know. MCO Performance could do a better job. But we were in San Francisco, and Marie-Claire got recognized as PCMA 20 in their 20s, and he was the keynote speaker. And anyway, he was walking past afterwards, and I was rooted to the spot. My knees went weak. I'd worked in football, I'd worked in entertainment, I'd met lots of famous people, meant nothing to me. But when Simon Sinek walked past, I froze. And Marie-Claire turns around, hits me a thump and says, take action, take action. So we chased him down for a selfie, and it underpins everything we do. It's about being action orientated, and our ethos is to drive positive action in everything we do and inspire those around us to do the same.
That's great. I love that story, and I aspire to one day be that person that people are awestruck. I don't think it's ever going to happen, unfortunately. But
hey, Steve, you take the $250,000.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'll take that. So when you're dealing with your clients, and thanks for explaining the business. That's really super interesting, and trying to help teams get the most out of their folks, and such a valuable thing to be working on. What's the common theme that you hear from businesses you're working with? Is there a common pain point that they have when it comes to trying to get the best out of their team?
Do you know, I think the challenges are that everybody is really saying our people are our most important asset. But really what they want is people who do what they say they will, have a really strong culture in terms of that psychological safety, and that they're innovative, and that they actually live up to the promise in terms of the brand that they're working for. So sometimes there can be a disconnect between what the business wants, and then the people's understanding of how they can help do that. And that's part of what we do, is align that. So to the understanding of the why, the purpose of the business, the purpose of the team, and how they're going to deliver and execute the business strategy against it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And now, and Marie-Claire, you alluded to this, but you've both worked in venues. What do you see as the biggest benefits that you're consulting, the type of work that you're providing, that can offer to the venue world?
I think it's probably the scalability and the repeatability. So it's so important whenever you are working in venues. A lot of what you do is obviously going to be tailored, and it's so heavily tailored to the specific client that you're working with, be that with an association client or an agency client or a direct corporate event organizer. And you want to make sure that there is that level of personalization, because events are such they're a personal buy, they're a personal sell, and it's such an experience. Whenever you go to an event, you want to make sure that you're actually coming away with either something that you've learned or something that you can put into practice. So you want to make sure that at all stages you're choosing the right venue, you're choosing the right destination, you have the speaker lineup, the content is aligned to make sure that that's a useful time spent for people, because it's taking them away from their day-to-day job a lot of the time. So what we tried to do and what we have done whenever we've been working with venues, or kind of understanding how we could apply MCO Performance's principles within venues or within the wider business events industry, we are thinking that it's really that scalability piece. So actually, how do you look at something and think, okay, 80% of these principles will be the same time and time again? What is there that we can actually use as an end-to-end process? How can we develop an end-to-end process where each member of the team understands how they fit in and how they contribute to that overall vision of shared success? And then how do you build in the time to repeat and refine those processes along the way? So once something's working really, really well, you do not need to reinvent the wheel every single time, but actually, how do you make sure that it's personalized ever so slightly to make sure that it's tailored to each client's needs, and then go back and look at it again and say, okay, how do we challenge this constructively? How do we make it even better so that every client gets better each time, but it's never fallen below a specific standard, and that everyone in the team can actually support one another to achieve that kind of minimum viable standard.
I think, Steve, to take from what Marie-Claire was saying, is that there's the systems and processes, and obviously Momentus is a fantastic system, and it's from end to end. And a lot of the time, people have a tendency to blame the system. But in our experience, and we put in new systems, we started with the people, we started with the why, we started with the success. And you'll talk about change management, and everybody says, oh, utopia over here, and there's this burning platform. And really, it's about understanding that the pain of change is worth the success out the other end, and what that means to each person, and then how you help them along that journey. And I think that's been a big part that we've been able to bring from our own experience whenever we worked in venue side, but also from the outside looking in and bringing it from other industries.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And actually is a great segue into my next question for you too. How do you measure the success for your clients, and for you for that matter, as you're doing these engagements?
Do you want me to take it, or are you going to go?
I'll jump in. So with each of our sessions, as we said at the outset, it's so important for us that what we're doing is action orientated. So within our sessions, we'll actually stop during the sessions themselves and actually say, okay, what are the changes that we're going to be making here? What are the actions that we are agreeing to and signing up to in the room? Because in strategy sessions, in facilitated sessions, there's always so much great energy in the room, but sometimes that actually gets left at the door and everyone says, oh, that was a great day, feel motivated, but it's short-lived. What we want to do is make sure that it actually lives on post the session, and it can be really easily integrated back into that day-to-day role. So we have a big focus on the action orientation. So we'll always say, okay, what's the next 2 steps? After you leave here today, what's the next 2 steps you're going to use to build the momentum? Because it's so much easier to keep going once you've started going. Sometimes the hardest thing is actually just to get started. So if you leave and you think, oh, there was a lot of theory in the room, I'm not actually sure how I can translate that into a practical learning style or practical application within my own role. But we'll actually make sure, okay, we'll take the theoretical models matched up with actual real life examples from the business. And that's why it's so important to us at the outset. We take a really deep dive into organizations at the design stage to make sure that we're understanding what it is that makes the people tick, what it is that has created the culture within the organization, what systems and processes are already in place. And then, okay, how do we make sure that the next 2 steps are really clear so that each person has their definitive action plan before they leave? And then we'll actually ask them straight up. We have a quantitative survey. And we'll say, how likely is it that you will take action on the learnings that you've done today? So we're sitting at around 90% average so far of people that'll absolutely take action on the learnings. And then there are some that'll say it probably will take action on the learnings. So I feel that's a good representation. Some people aren't fully committed to definitely doing it all of the time, but at least they're probably going to do it.
I think to take from the KPIs with the businesses, and we're relatively new in terms of MCO performance, but we have a track record of like we took ticket sales where we had put in Tessitura, but we took it from 5.6 million to 9.1 million without an additional marketing budget. And the big piece for us is actually tying into the business's KPIs. What we've seen with a number of clients now is that their sales figures are going up because we're working with their sales teams. And from a leadership perspective, the pieces that the team is aligned, and that psychological safety takes time. So we're working on 12-month and 18-month programs, because it's, as Marie-Claire said at the start, it's the infinite game that we're in for. It's not a finite in one and done. For us, it's all about how do we actually have momentum and how do we make a difference.
Yeah, no, it's that's really great to hear. And look, I think you guys are tackling head on probably one of the biggest challenges that any business faces, and that is bringing the team along for the journey, particularly when there's change involved. So hats off to what you're doing, and I think you're doing incredible stuff. Look, to finish up here, it's really tough taking the plunge and starting up your own business. So again, kudos to you both for doing this huge leap. Not everybody can do this. So what advice would you give to anyone that's thinking of taking that plunge as well?
If I talk about our origin story, Marie-Claire and I had worked together at ICC Belfast, Waterfront and Ulster Hall for 6 years. And for 5 of the 6 years, we were someday, one day, going to set up our own business. A whole plethora of different ideas. But what we did know about was aligning teams, motivation, mindset, and creating high performance cultures. But this time last year, summer 2023, where it was still a pipe dream. It was a someday, one day. We had good jobs. We had defined benefit pension schemes. And it's kind of hard to make that change, that leap. But I was at a conference in Copenhagen, and the woman on the stage turned around and said, "How are you ever going to teach your children to follow their dreams if you don't follow your own?" In that instant, I knew, my goodness, like, I actually have to do this. I have to go and set up my own company. So came back to Belfast, said to Marie-Claire, we need to do this. Of course, as always, Marie-Claire was way ahead of me. I was like, yeah, let's go. I have the bags packed ready at the door. So that was in September. We incorporated the business in November. We jointly handed in our notice because I was the director of sales and marketing. Marie-Claire was the head of sales and marketing. So, and then we set up MCO Performance on the 1st of February. And I suppose my advice, my challenge to anyone is, like, what dream are you thinking of now? And it could be as an entrepreneur as much as an entrepreneur. But how are you ever going to teach your children to follow their dreams if you just talk about it? You have to take action.
Incredible, and action you have indeed, and it's great to hear the successes you're already having, and I would certainly encourage anyone out there that needs some people training, some work on change management to maximize what their teams are doing, to be in touch with you guys, because I think you're doing a phenomenal job. Thank you so much, Oona and Marie-Claire, for joining us. This has been great, and I look forward to catching up again in person at some stage in the not too distant future.
Sounds brilliant.
See you there. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.